Here is part 4, and what I think will be the final part of at least these tutorials on basic PVC. And now I think that you're probably going to be ready to start making your own textures. Remember what I said before about textures being at 256 by 256. This we can comfortably reduce. So I'm going to go to image size, and I'm going to constrain proportions 256 by 256, and I'm going to take that in bilinear and click OK. And now you see at 256 by 256 you've still got a nice strong texture. When we're talking about color, what you're going to do with color is go to layer, new layer, and set it to normal for the time being. I usually like to test my textures in red. For me, red tells me if something is going to look good or not, so I just grab my paint bucket and I just throw red right on top of it. This is a bit of a brighter red. I can use something just a touch darker if I want to. And from here, I'm going to start playing with my modes. Let's go to soft light and see what happens. You get something a bit darker, a bit more burgundy that still has that brightness in center, and you can still see all of the sides, your border, very well. If I go to overlay, I get something quite a bit different. I get extreme white in the middle, and I get nice red going around, so it looks a little bit more like, say, I guess a liquid. What happens when I go to hard light? Hard light turns all of the white into a different color while retaining the black. So that is also a really nice effect for certain things. If I go to multiply, it's pretty much the same thing as hard light, except it's a little bit darker. For that, I think you would have to duplicate a couple of layers or add a layer on top to make it just a little bit brighter. If I go to screen is going to give me what I would consider a workable color PVC. There are a couple of more steps to doing this color PVC, but that right there is a good start. You've got the red base over here, you've got the white over here. Just to give you an idea, I would probably add a new layer. The new layer would be at soft light. I would click OK. That new layer would be black bucket, and that would make it a little bit darker for me and a little bit more workable for me. I don't want it to be so burgundy. I would go at 50% gray, and then it wouldn't look nearly as pink, or even 75. But this is all. You have to play with it personally. Play with your red. See how bright you want your red. And that would be the way you would make a more colorful PVC texture. Okay, so going back to our red, let's play a little bit more. What do I do with lighten? Lighten is the same effect as screen. Color dodge. Color dodge is not really going to be useful for this. Linear dodge. Linear dodge does very much the same thing as screen, but perhaps not quite as plasticky. What have I left out? How about color burn? Not really very useful. How about linear burn? Linear burn is very much the same as, say, hard light. Well, not for this one. You also have to remember that with certain colors, That's hard light right there. And that for me is a beautiful, workable, shiny, satiny. But you have to remember that with certain colors, you're not going to have any effect at all. Like if my red is too bright, I'm not going to see anything. So hard light, you have to remember that you're going to use it with colors that are a bit on the darker side. Darker greens, darker purples. If you go with this kind of color, it also depends on brightness of the color, but you just go around experimenting with all of these different varieties of color. There you've got a nice teal, there you've got a nice blue, and you can just keep going and going and going and until you achieve something that you really want in the color that you want. But I'm going to keep it on screen right now. Why? Because I want to touch on something that really bugs the hell out of almost every single person I've met that does PVC textures for IMVU, and that's white PVC. At first, I was pretty mind-boggled by how to do it. And when I realized after trial and error how simple it is, I kind of slapped myself in the head. White and black do not render well in the client. So if I go to 100% white, I'm going to get absolutely nothing. It's worthless. It's going to be a bit of gray. So I would go at maybe 25% gray, set to screen, bucket, and there you have something. It's a little bit too, there's not enough. So how about 50%? And now you see that something is happening and you've got white PVC going on. Now, if I want to go into group 1 and I want to change this to screen, it gets even more intense. If I want to change the base a little bit, I can as well. Everything else I can set to screen, and it's going to come out a bit more prominent and intense. And that's how you do white PVC. And that's something else that takes a bit of practice. Okay, so we're back to this point over here. So, what do I do with this now that I've got it at 256 by 256? Okay, so I've got certain things that are grouped together and I want to keep them together. All of my dots grouped together, set on screen so that they're more intense. Everything's set on screen. This is set on light and that is set on normal, but I think I'm going to move it to screen. Okay, so now what you're going to play with here in your filters are your distorts. And one of my favorite filters happens to be pinch. And what happens when I pinch it? If I pinch it at 100% and click OK, that's what you get. Your border starts to take on a bit more character. So I can go to filter and I can pinch that again. And it takes on a bit more character. I repeat. And you can repeat with Control F. And look what you've got there. A bit more character still. Control Z, because I think 2 is more than enough. I want to do the same thing with number 2. So Control Z. Control F. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to go here to filter and pinch, which would be Control F. But not on that one, on base copy 2. And there we go. And I want to do that about 4 times. Twice as many times as you've done the first one. Now, if I want to go here and I want to change these a bit, I can do the same. I can go Control F. And not much is going to happen when I pinch them. So I'm going to try another one. Filter. Distorts again. And I'm going to go with my polar coordinates. So what happens? Click OK. They go away, so that's not really a good option. So I'm going to keep these intact for the time being, and I can work with them in a different way later if I want to. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work with my base. So first, I'm going to merge those two because like we said before, we're not planning on doing anything with them anymore. So when I grab this, I'm going to go to Filter, and I'm going to go to my Distort, and I'm going to go to Polar Coordinates, but I want to go rectangular to polar, and click OK. And now you've got this little half moon thing going on, which is pretty cool to me. I'm going to duplicate that. And then when I duplicate that, I'm going to go to Edit, Transform, and I'm going to just flip that vertically. And then I'm going to change the mode to screen. And there, you have a double circle right there. So if I want to, I can go to Image, Image Rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, and now I have them in this way. If I want to, I can merge those two. I can duplicate. I can go to Edit, Free Transform, 90 degrees clockwise, go to Screen, and here you've got something else going on. So now you've got 4, and you've got in the center a little bit of black, which of course you can go back into your base PVC, and you can change that image size to say about, I don't know, 128. Let's go. And you can do best for reduction on that one, because the borders aren't really going to be important at the moment. And you want to go underneath that to layer 1, take that, shift, and in the middle, put that on top, change that to screen, and there you've got another type of texture that you can use. Now I can go even further and further. Like I said, the possibilities are absolutely endless. And the way that I arrived at something like this, or something like this, was that I, after saving this PSC file the way it is, so you don't lose anything, you're going to convert everything to a smart object, or actually, you're going to merge visible. Now everything is merged. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z on that. And I'm going to grab this, and using my smart guides, one there, one there, one there, and one there. And this is getting really modern, avant-garde, I guess is the best way to put it. And you're going to merge these, merge visible. And now you're going to go back into your filters, and you're going to go into your blur. Sorry, not your blur, your distort. And let's say you want to pinch, and pinch to 100%, or pinch the other way. Let's pinch to 100%. And you get that. You can mix it again, and it gets even more intense. Let's go one more time, and you see you can get something like that. Twice, once, twice, once. So it can just be endless and go on and on and on. I can go here and color it. So go to layer, new layer, set that to screen. And with my gray paint bucket on that, and there you go. You've got a white PVC that you can use in different ways in your room. If you want, you can turn it to soft light. Or you can turn it to multiply. Now what multiply is going to do is it's going to lessen, and in the case of rooms, you need to lessen the effect a little bit. So you would use 50% gray on multiply, and you lessen it so that it's not nearly as intense. It's not, oh my god, I'm so white. You can use this if you need light, like if you need to put it on the ceiling as a lighting fixture, that works really well. But if you're going to use this on a wall, that would actually be a bit better. You could also use it on a table, use a different opacity when you're working in create mode. Many different things you can do. Okay, so I think I've done more than enough to get you started.